black coffee.
This is the Kavoya Coffee Podcasting Network. Coffee people talking to coffee people about coffee and things coffee adjacent.
This episode of Another Cup is brought to you by Kavoya Specialty Coffee, where coffee is always a collaborative voyage.
California cold, but the price is tall. Living big, living wild, but you pay for it all. Golden dreams, golden skies.
Welcome to episode 22 of Another Cup, one of several very special episodes we recorded at our Friday night party during the recent World of Coffee event in San Diego. The party was a great success. Thank you to all attended. We filled the two-story restaurant and bar, there was a line out the door, and it wasn't my quiet, comfortable studio where it's very quiet and I am very comfortable. In this episode, Mark Inman and Todd Mackey from the Exchange Coffee podcast interviewed Jeff Taylor from Bird Rock Coffee. As we join the conversation, Jeff is talking about how he went from award-winning photojournalist to coffee, first in Topeka, Kansas, and then 20 years later, doing it all over again in San Diego, California.
I don't know how I made the leap either, I'll be honest. I tell people all the time I tripped and fell into coffee. I lived in Lewiston, Idaho. I was a photojournalist. I told you that, you know that.
Yeah.
I won some awards when I was living in Columbia, Missouri, out of college, and I won some awards at the newspaper there. Job offers came in. Randomly, I ended up in Lewiston, Idaho. So, hey, that sounds like a nice place. So I took a job in Lewiston, Idaho, worked at the newspaper there. It was a good photo-oriented newspaper. And I ended up winning Regional Photographer of the Year in Idaho that included 4 states. So I won Regional Photographer of the Year in 1990. Job offers started coming in again. And I'm from Kansas originally. And so I was very aware of a newspaper called the Topeka Capital Journal. Anybody that follows college basketball, you may have seen pictures in Sports Illustrated for the last 30 years from a man named Rich Clarkson.
Yeah.
Rich Clarkson was the director of photography at the Topeka Capital Journal.
Okay.
He was known as a career maker. I mean, people went there and Rich made their careers. He would employ them, help teach them, critique them, and he was a hard ass to work for. But everybody loved him for it. Anyway, but that was my connection to the Capital Journal. So when they called, Rich wasn't there anymore, but one of his proteges, Jeff Jacobson, was the new director of photography. And he called and basically said, hey, it's your time to come home. And I'm like, okay, I'm in, let's go. And so I moved back thinking this is my big chance to go from Topeka to New York Times or a big magazine or whatever, you know. And I got to Topeka and the newspaper wasn't what it once was. That happens, right?
Yeah.
The newspaper wasn't what it once was, 1. And 2, I was familiar living in Lewiston in the late 80s. Starbucks had not gone public yet, right? No. Starbucks had a couple locations.
Yeah, 11 to 15 stores.
But I had heard chatter around about these Starbucks, and there were also coffee carts on the street in the Northwest back in the late 80s. I don't know if you remember that.
Of course.
There were coffee carts everywhere. Yeah. Well, there was a coffee cart in Lewiston. I took it for granted. I didn't think anything of it. I would stop, get my coffee, and go on to work. And it wasn't until I moved to Topeka that I went, how's it possible there was no coffee here? The only coffee was a gas station or something like that. It literally almost confused me. It like put me on tilt. How can this be? And then I found a local coffee shop in Lawrence, Kansas. There was a place there called La Primitaza. They didn't roast or anything. They just had a little coffee shop. And I found myself driving over there every weekend. It was 30 miles. I would drive 30 miles on the weekends in the morning just to get a cup of coffee.
Jeez. Wow.
And one day I went, what the hell am I doing? And so I thought, opening a coffee shop can't be rocket science. And I just decided one day, I'm going to open a coffee shop in Topeka. It'll be a nice hobby. And I never intended to give up my career. Again, I had just moved to Topeka.
Hustle.
Yeah, it was a side hustle.
Okay.
I had just moved to Topeka thinking I'm going to be the next superstar photographer.
Right.
Little did I know I had no talent. But I opened this little coffee shop, and it started working. I had a roommate at the time who was managing 3 Schlotzsky's. You know what Schlotzsky's are?
Of course.
Sandwich cafe.
Yeah, deli.
He was managing 3 different stores all at once, and he was my roommate. I was my early 30s, my roommate. And I was like, dude, why don't you quit your job and come manage my coffee shop for me? I'll give you half of it. I'll let you be a half owner if you come manage my coffee shop. Still my partner to this day.
Wow.
So
that's awesome. What an opportunity for him.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
So-
Fred's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
So going back to Kansas was
That
a
was
return
going home for me, right?
Yeah.
I went to school at Kansas State University.
Okay, gotcha.
And then my photography career kind of took me away from there.
Okay.
And then when Topeka called, the Capital Journal called me, here's an opportunity for you to come home.
Gotcha. You convinced your roommate to come into the business.
Yeah.
How long from that moment until you left your primary career and became a coffee guy?
I quit my job at the newspaper. I want to say it was 98, 99. So like 6 years later.
Yeah.
6 years later probably.
Okay.
But on a side note, my director of photography at the time, when I went in to tell him I was quitting my job to go manage my coffee shop, he looked me in the eye and he said, "You're giving up your career to go manage a coffee shop?" And I was like, "Oh, well, when you put it that way."
Yeah, right.
I thought about it for a second. I mean, yeah, I guess I am. And I walked out.
Wow.
And I will tell you, and he did, the next word he said to me was, "Well, I just want you to know you're going to fail." Dead serious. Those were his words. It didn't bother me because I was already committed. I was already in, man. I bought a roaster. I was already in. To his credit, in like 2000, he sent me a letter with no return address, just signed it Jeff. That was his name. His name was Jeff. He sent me a letter saying, "Jeff, I just want you to know I'm really proud of you. I was 100% wrong. You're doing great work. Keep it
Good
up."
on him. That's cool.
How cool is that?
So you had PTs for quite a few years.
Yeah.
How big did you grow in that market? That was the fun years of coffee, the 90s. You know, everything was possible.
You know, it was interesting. It was fun years for us being in Kansas.
Right.
We didn't have mass distribution. We didn't have density of population.
Uh-huh.
So it was challenging for us to make a living.
Okay.
We had spread up to where we had, I guess at one point we had 5 retail cafes.
Okay.
But not all of them were successful.
Sure.
We had 2 or 3 at any given time that would be successful and would kind of help us pay. And so we realized, being in Kansas, our path was probably more wholesale. So we had our retail cafes, but really just as a front to help us sell more wholesale.
And you were doing wholesale like grocery or restaurant or?
No, cafes.
Oh, cafes. Okay.
I'm a purist, Mark, or I was
yeah.
a complete purist, and I didn't want to ever do grocery because that would be selling out.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And then I realized good coffee can be made for everyone if you want to. So.
Right.
But anyway, so we at first it was we just sold to specialty cafes. We didn't even really sell to restaurants. We just sold to specialty cafes around the country, and that was it.
Oh, so your territory spread out far and wide from Kansas.
Yeah, it did. We started selling, and then we eventually selling in 35 states.
Wow.
We were doing wholesale.
Wow.
I think it was around 2007, 2008. We looked it up. We were in 35 states, and things were going very well. And then the economy. I don't know if people remember the big bubble economy in 2008.
Oh, yeah.
And it didn't, like many coffee companies, it didn't really affect our sales immediately. Like when the economy went down, we didn't notice it right away, but we did notice it over the next 4 or 5 years. And I think it was also timing in the industry.
Right.
More and more of our customers were starting to roast their own coffee.
Yes.
And that was just the trend in the industry because the market crashed. People were looking for ways to save money.
Right.
And it was fun to travel to Origin.
Simultaneously, the culture within the industry segment pointed to cafes like, hey, you're missing the best stuff.
Correct.
Right? If you're not doing this, something's wrong.
There's a part of it. There's a part of coffee tourism that was all involved in that as well.
Sure.
I was always an early adopter on social media, and I used to post all my travels on Instagram. And early on, my wife used to tell me I was famous in Australia because I had so many followers in Australia.
Wow.
I know another coffee buyer that works for a different importer in town who told me point blank that's the reason he now works for an importer and travels to buy coffee is because he saw all my pictures on Instagram.
Wow.
It made him want to do it.
Well, I also feel that there's a certain element of the time that you were coming up in coffee and traveling a lot, and myself and Todd and like Jeff Watts and that we sold a bill of goods that this is how the industry operates, and I think now it doesn't operate like that anymore.
Agreed.
And so a lot of people I thought I was going to be a coffee buyer and I'm going to be with this passport and suitcase and going off And no, I got a calculator and a pencil, and now I'm doing math.
That's exactly right.
Oh, what happened with those guys? How come they got to do that?
I still remember Dwayne.
Yeah, Dwayne Swordsman.
Yeah. He told the story about how he got in his station wagon, was taking his wife and kids on a drive through Mexico down to Guatemala, and I'm thinking, yeah, you don't really do that much anymore. That's not really the way it works anymore.
No. 2008 happens. You start to see a dip eventually. You obviously muscled through with PTs, but what brought you to look out this way?
Well, for us, again, I was in a small market.
Right.
Many of the roasters here own cafes in major cities. I was in a city that was not a major city.
Uh-huh.
If any of you look up Topeka, Kansas on a map, it's a fairly small town. It's 100,000 people. But it couldn't support more than 4 cafes, 5 cafes. But at the time, now there are a dozen cafes in that town because coffee has taken hold nationwide.
Right.
But back in the early 2000s, coffee was not the culture in the United States that it is now. Right.
Uh-huh.
And so we were selling wholesale, but we realized as some of our best accounts were starting to close down to roast their own coffee, we realized, oh wow, we have a problem here. Because if we lose some of these best accounts because they're roasting their own coffee, how are we going to make our living in the future? And so we realized our best path was to get into a major market, where we could open up retail cafes and control our own destiny. And that's why when it just so happened Bird Rock worked out, but it was my goal all along. If it wasn't Bird Rock, it was going to be somewhere else, and I can tell you that story in a moment. But the goal was to immediately establish a roastery and open up 3 to 5 cafes wherever it was I went. And it just so happened that Chuck called me at San Diego, and I ended up here.
At the time, was the strategy to grow to the major market under the PT's label?
Yes.
That was the original plan.
Long story short, the plan was I was looking for a market that wasn't completely developed yet. Obviously, Seattle, Portland, Chicago, Intelligentsia, New York, they were already, until I was there,
Everybody
Joe was there.
was descending,
There were certain markets, LA was there, there were certain markets that were taken already. And I'm looking at them, marking them off on a map, going, where can I move and start over effectively? I sold half of PTs.
Okay.
Was able to acquire a certain amount of money that was going to allow me to somewhat start over. By starting over and creating another roastery, it would be up the value of the whole and allow us to grow more, right? Yeah. And so originally, the city I marked was D.C., was Washington, D.C. And I flew to D.C. and looked at 30 different locations, spent 3 or 4 days there, and came home. And when I got home, I was actually sick as a dog. I found out I'd also just gotten back from Ecuador, and I had Giardia.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that was a real joy. Let me tell you, especially when the doctors in Kansas weren't sure what Giardia was, because we don't have a lot of mountains in Kansas.
Right.
So they didn't know what Giardia was. No, that's not true. They knew what it was. They just didn't identify it because they don't have mountains there. It wasn't the first thing on their list, right?
Sure.
Anyway, so I was laying in bed sick, and Chuck called me one day, who was the founder of Bird Rock, called me and said, Jeff, my wife and I are done. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, we're done, dude. We're selling our business. I'm like, no, you're not. You crazy.
I couldn't believe that.
I can swear on this podcast, but that's okay. Good. That comes out by nature with me. I can't help it. He said, yeah, we're done. I was like, well, if you're serious, dude, I'd love to talk to you about it. But he said, yeah, no, I'm dead serious. My wife and I, we hit a wall where it's either we grow or we don't. So we agreed we're just going to sell it. Okay, well, if you're serious, let's talk. And I had told you I had just sold half of PT.
Right.
So the timing literally just landed perfectly.
And when was this?
He called me in 2016.
Okay.
The summer of 2016. And by December, we had worked out all the details.
Okay.
And just a matter of drawing up the paperwork, and I moved here in February.
Okay.
The day I signed the paperwork, I already had my car loaded and was driving to California. I'd said my goodbyes to my friends in Topeka and promised I'd come back someday.
Have you been to Bird Rock?
I have not. No, this is my first time in San Diego since
what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
They never let me out of the office. I'm like I'm in a cage.
I mean, the original store is on the beach.
Oh,
it's ideal. And so when you just,
to be real, it's a block from the beach, but it's close enough.
Yeah, you can throw a rock.
Yeah, you can throw a rock. That's why they call it Bird Rock.
When you purchased it, how many stores did he have?
When I bought Bird Rock was the original, and that was it's still a great store. We still love it.
Yeah.
And then he had opened Little Italy, which is a great store, really nice store for us.
Yep.
And then he had just landed a building that is our roastery.
Okay.
It was a warehouse space. He had a roastery in it, And Chuck had put in what he called his tasting bar.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yeah, and it was a little bar. He did a little bit of business every day, and that was about it.
Right.
And he had an office there, and he had his 35 kilo in there, and that was the extent of what we bought, and he was doing great.
And so then what was the plan, the expansion plan? Like, how quickly did you grow this?
Well, as I've told Chuck, and as I tell everybody, Chuck got all my money, and I got all his problems, is what it boiled down to.
That's how it works.
No, we opened, when I landed, we had Chuck helping us out, basically
Right.
introducing us. We all knew it was just time. He was just there in the transition. And by the end of the first year, Chuck wasn't even coming in anymore. I think maybe a year and a half. But we opened our second store a year later. That included construction time. So I'd signed my lease on the next location pretty much in the first 3 months. So that was the Torrey Pines location. The goal was kind of 1 or maybe 2 stores a year if we could finance it, if we could make it work.
Sure.
Despite what some people might want to believe, they think I came here with just loads of money and I can just do whatever I want. Coffee doesn't work that way.
No.
People can think I'm rich all they want, dude. This is
Yeah.
nothing more than hard work and making a few good business decisions.
And so Bird Rock now is how many locations?
Well, we're up to 11 now.
11
Oh,
locations.
geez.
Yeah,
Wow. I
we've
had
got
no
to
idea.
11 stores now. And
That's awesome.
My favorite thing is we're up to 11 stores now, and the original Bird Rock location only does 5% less business than it did when I bought it.
Wow.
I can imagine a little bit of drop off because we opened 8 more stores, right?
Sure.
And some of the people used to drive in, don't drive anymore because I got them all over town. So
Yeah.
it's only down 5%
Wow.
from where it was when I bought it. So I'm like, I feel pretty good about
Yeah,
that.
that's incredible.
And it's still in my top 3 stores. So
Very
we go to some
cool.
others. So that's all good.
That's awesome. Well, before we run out of time with you, I have to ask, because we're here in San Diego. You're a local. You're naturalized here.
Yeah.
Been here a long time.
Yeah. As my wife will tell you, I'm welcome to move anywhere and she'll come visit me because she's not leaving. So we're locals.
So you know the lay of the land. Obviously, anyone here who's listening, but even more, we have next year in New Orleans, World of Coffee, and then we come back for another round in San Diego. Like,
Yeah, I've heard.
What are
Heard
the-
rumor of that?
What are the best things for people who are considering World of Coffee or at World of Coffee to be mindful of and to take advantage of while they're here in San Diego? That could be food, that could be music,
No.
it could be,
I'll be honest. I'm probably not the one to ask.
well, I'm asking you.
I'm a little bit older.
Sure.
I have 2 kids at home that are young.
Yeah.
And so I eat at home. I sit at home with my kids. I don't get out a lot. I'll be honest with you. And when I go to work, I don't look at anybody else in town as competition, so I don't worry about what other cafes are doing. I'm happy to help any of them that want to come knock on my door, help any of them.
Sure,
I don't
sure.
look at anybody as competition. I just only focus on my business. I don't ever go shop at other coffee shops to see what they're doing. When I can,
Sure.
you guys do you. I'm doing me. It's all good. So I wish everybody well. So I'm really not the one to ask advice on where to go.
So what I'm taking from this then is you got 11 locations as of this weekend. We're looking at, I would say, 14 to 15 by the time we're hanging in 2028, and they got to check all of them out.
Yeah,
Is that what's
exactly.
going on?
I will say, when the pandemic hit, coming out of the pandemic slowed expansion dramatically.
Sure.
One, we had kind of topped out on how much I could borrow. I lost my equities, kind of capped for a year or 2 here until I can pay down some debt. One. And 2, I don't know if you've opened a retail store lately, but construction costs have more than doubled. I mean, it's insane.
Right.
So to open a retail store, a good one that you believe is going to do, well over $1 million a year in sales, is very expensive to open that store now, and the payback, it's going to be a lot harder. So
Sure.
we're not as eager to jump into expansion anymore. We're kind of slowing down a little
Okay. So 11 to 12 stores, they got to check it out.
bit. We may be at 13 in a couple of years. We'll see.
Very cool.
All right.
We'll
Very
see.
cool.
We'll set the target at 13, and we'll revisit
There you
that
go.
on our next
There
podcast.
you go.
Well, Jeff, super grateful that you
Thank you
decided
so
to
much.
split off the time with us.
Yeah, thank you
And
so much.
really grateful to be in your town. I mean, it's
Yep.
beautiful, needless to say. I mean, if anyone who's not here with us live, I mean, it's like just the perfect 68 degrees.
It's funny. I don't go on vacation very often anymore. That's the problem.
I imagine you don't really
it
feel like
really
you
is
have to.
hard. I don't go on
Where would
vacation.
you
I'm
go?
like, where would I want to go, man? It's that's what makes it hard. So people in San Diego are very happy.
Yep.
You get off the airplane, you sense it right away. The Uber drivers are smiling. People love living here, and it's hard to live here. Let's be honest. It's expensive,
Yep.
but if you can figure out a way to make a living here, you're happy. I'm happy.
Almost too good to be true.
I thank Chuck often. I often thank Chuck for allowing me to come in and develop the business he started. I owe a lot of that to him. He started this thing. All I'm doing is helping grow it and trying to maintain and improve the quality as I can.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Appreciate you, Jeff.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys.
California calls, but the price is tall. Living big, living wild, but you pay for it all.
You've been listening to a special edition of Another Cup, recorded during our Friday night party at the recent World of Coffee event in San Diego. This and upcoming World of Coffee party episodes are hosted by Mark Inman and Todd Mackey from the Exchange Coffee Podcast. Another Cup is part of the Kavoya Coffee Podcasting Network, where the executive producer is me, Mike Ferguson. Very comfortable in my quiet and comfortable studio. Our theme music for this episode is Golden Dreams of California by Eliza Music.
Black coffee.
If you've enjoyed this or any show on the Kavoya Coffee Podcasting Network, please do all the things. Like, rate, subscribe, follow, tell your friends. Right now. I'll wait. You'll find a link to our short listener survey in the show notes, and if you haven't already, please take the survey.
Please, I'm begging you.
Finally, remember two things. You can always email me with thoughts, questions, ideas, and recipes at mike.ferguson@kavoya.com, and Black Coffee is performed by the one and only Ella Fitzgerald. This has been a CCPN production.